I'm Roger Magolas here at Strata, New York, 2018. I'm here with Kimberly Nevala, who is the Director of Business Strategy at SAS. Welcome.
Thank you.
And the first question is around risk and trust in AI. Clearly a big topic, and I think an important topic. And you talked about the importance of businesses rationalizing risk and trying to really make sense of what they're doing so that the trust is there for the algorithms they're developing. What does this mean, and why is it important?
Well, one of the things, or one of my observations has been that a lot of the conversation that we have today about mitigating risk in AI tends to focus on how do we actually mitigate risk and eliminate risk within the context of the solution or the algorithm that we're developing itself. So how do we do things like making sure that we're applying the appropriate level of scientific rigor, right, and discipline about how we actually develop these solutions, and more specifically, how do we train the algorithm? And to grossly oversimplify, how do we make sure we're applying the right techniques to the right problem with the right data? How do we make sure that we're trying to account to the extent that we can for any implicit bias or deficiencies in the data sets? How do we make sure that we're actually training and testing these systems appropriately using different data sets and so on and so forth? And this is all extremely, extremely important. But one of the things I think that we also still need to recognize and have a much more deliberate discussion with our business counterparts is that the best data science, the best AI, ML engineering team with the best algorithm, with the best data that we have available to us today is still going to deliver a solution that makes mistakes. Right. It may make mistakes that are different than we would have made as a human, and it may very well make them at a frequencies that's perhaps less than we would, but it will make mistakes. So we really, I think, need to be having the conversation with the business stakeholders about what does that really mean in terms of risk? What are the real risks? What are the real errors that could still occur, and what's the implication of that? What are some of the intangible risks that are inherent in that as a result of that? How might people perceive the solution? What might be those inherent biases that are there? And what is our tolerance for risk as an organization? What is our ability to react when a mistake happens and to actually course correct appropriately when some of those material errors occur, because they will?
Now it sounds like a very human-oriented approach to the problem, and I think you're absolutely right about that becoming an important thing for the facilitation of AI. Mm-hmm. So how does making the risk clear help with that facilitation rather than scaring folks away?
Yeah. So I think that a lot of times uncertainty in and of itself doesn't cause distrust. I like to say that uncertainty about your uncertainty causes distrust and that. And given that we're currently at a data conference, it occurs to me that this is the age-old data quality problem sort of writ large. Right? We used to have this conversation where someone would develop a report or an analytics model, and they would say, and I delivered it to the business, and they won't use it, even just a simple metric, because they say the data's not good enough. It's not perfect. And I said, okay, well, what did you tell them about how good or bad it was? And they said, well, we told them it was 98% accurate. And I said, okay, but that's not in a context that they can actually absorb. So, for a very simplified example, if I look at, I'm talking to someone in financial services, and you've got a credit risk exposure of $1 million plus or minus, right, 200,000, or $1 billion plus or minus 200 million, because the data is 98% accurate. Now I can actually make a decision about if and how to use that information. And I think the same principle applies within artificial intelligence and with these solutions. If I understand what the scope of the risk or the errors may be, I can move beyond this discussion, which is, should I, right, if I should implement the solution, to how can I implement the solution. So now I can have a discussion about what are the boundaries within which this solution can credibly make a recommendation or credibly take independent action. What are the guardrails and the conditions in which we have to monitor and really take heed? And how do I actually account for new situations and conditions or unexpected errors, because they're always going to happen, right? So if we do that right, we can now have a good conversation about how do we actually deploy the solution. What's the engagement model and the role of the human and the solution when we actually deploy into production.
I think you're really hitting on some important points there. But what else is holding back the adoption of AI these days?
Well, I think in a lot of ways, I think artificial intelligence is strangely both overhyped and simultaneously undervalued, which probably sounds a little odd, except for we've got so much publicity about what these solutions might be actually able to do, and in a lot of cases that's just overinflated, right? It's going to cure all of society's ills, it's going to allow us to make totally unbiased decisions, and it's just, and so that sometimes this sets this unrealistic expectation about what can actually be delivered and how easily it can be delivered. On the other hand, knowing that, or people looking at these solutions and thinking, wow, they're really complicated and they're really hard, are really hesitant to then start actually deploying and thinking about how to deploy the different technologies and solutions. And ultimately, artificial intelligence is we see it as a continuing evolution towards these, ever more advanced analytics. And so and obviously composed of things like machine learning, deep learning, computer vision, natural language processing. And becoming AI enabled, it's a marathon and not a sprint, I like to say. So when we're too concerned about sort of reinventing the business as it is, or solving problems that are too big, we're overlooking the opportunity to start driving value now and to develop these skill sets by starting to just apply components of artificial intelligence, whether it's bringing in new types of data, right, language and text and documents, or applying new techniques. Maybe it's deep learning or unsupervised learning or computer vision to help us do what we're doing today better and faster. And that's really unfortunate because those are the opportunities where organizations can see value quickly and start to get some confidence in their ability to deploy these solutions long term.
So how is SAS helping their customers on their AI journey?
Yeah. So I think in a couple of different ways. First of all, we are developing tools with things like our visual data mining and machine learning solutions that make very diverse algorithms and analytic capabilities available to folks to develop their own solutions. We also recognize that the problem isn't just in development of the model, but how do we actually deploy and maintain those at scale? So we've got our platform that's looking to support the end-to-end analytics cycle. So everything from data validation and integration to model development, which you can do in SAS or using your favorite open source tools and other things, to being able to then deploy those models in production at scale. And we're also embedding those own capabilities, whether it's computer vision, natural language processing, into our own packaged solutions as well. And maybe last but not least, folks like myself are trying to come out and talk to folks about what is it really required from a business and a people and a process perspective to become AI enabled and AI capable, because ultimately the technology is difficult, but AI, like other technologies before it, it's not the technology that's the hard part. It's how do we adopt business practice and how do we actually develop the rigor and the discipline and the skills to be able to deploy and manage these solutions on an ongoing basis.
That's great. Well, thanks for your time today.
Thank you very much.